Mental Health Awareness
Month.
It's Mental Health Awareness
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Judgment Seesaw. I'm joined today by Derek Brown from FantasyPros. Welcome to the show, Derek. Before I dive into you, I know I can tell you want to respond immediately to that intro. But
I wasn't expecting something like Disney operatic-esque to like it's you dropped it right before we went live and you were like, you're gonna enjoy this video, and I was like, oh shit, what the hell is about to happen? I've done so much crazy shit. If he's clipped something and then you drop that, I'm like, oh. that was glorious. Head tip of the cap, man. That was very well done.
Thank you. For anyone that's watching right now, if you want to do those, DM me. I'll show you how to do them. I write all the lyrics, but you can use AI to help make stuff like that now, and it's a lot of fun. Speaking of AI, this is on Good Guy AI. The Judgment Seesaw has nothing to do with AI, though. This is a show about mental health. Today, I'm joined by Derek Brown from FantasyPros. And the Judgment Seesaw itself is a concept that comes from economics. For if you're watching and you haven't heard this yet, it's been parlayed by the therapy industry, and it essentially helps identify a social paradigm that we all run into unwittingly, where we judge. And if you are judging, you can't actually be understanding simultaneously. So the Judgment Seesaw is just a way for you to check yourself and make sure you're putting yourself in other people's shoes. And if you want to try it at some point this week, like you're listening to somebody, try to judge them and understand at the same time, and you will find that it is pretty much impossible. So that's the point of the Judgment Seesaw, to be more understanding and caring. And I want to understand and care more about Derek Brown than I already do, which is plenty. So give us a little rundown on you before we dive into mental health. I know I mentioned FantasyPros, but what you got going on, who you want to plug? Tell us a little bit about Derek Brown, the fantasy football experience.
I mean, basically every platform you can find me at Debro_FFB across everything. Yeah, dude. I mean, everything's always a FantasyPros. Has been for the last 2+ years, unless it's 3 years. I don't know. Time escapes me now. It's all flat circle. But dude, it's been all the things with the rookies, all the things dynasty. All my positional primers are live on the site. Updated all of those to 80+ skill players. All of my rankings, if you just pull up my rookie rankings, 80+ skill player write-ups with dynasty outlooks going all the way down to UDFA guys. So those are all done. And now I'm kind of getting into the redraft best ball weeds, my perfect draft article, which is really going to just walk you through every single round this year. I mean, usually it's like 40 to 50+ players that I'm heavily targeting. That'll be live probably like next week-ish, and we have the redraft kit dropping, best ball kit dropping, and all the things and stuff, man. I mean, got 2 shows later today for the channel. Got another bust video that's coming out. So, I mean, it's a busy time, dude. So, all the content people want, where they're getting back into this or doing rookie drafts, we got you covered.
I love it. Again, it's at Debro_FFB. If you're not following him yet, you should be. Go follow him on whatever social media platform you're on. So fantasy football is fantastic, and we'll talk a little bit about the industry and content creation and the struggles within for sure. But for you, Derek, I want to hear a little bit before we get into the interview segment of this about your story in relation to mental health. Do you mind giving just like a 1.5-minute rundown on you and your experience?
Yeah, it's honestly something that I feel like the older I've gotten, mental health struggles run in my family. There are various, people littered throughout my family that have bipolar, anxiety, depression, things like that. And it was always something that I never really kind of identified, like when I was younger growing up, and the older I've gotten, I feel like it's something, and some of these things like happen, like people reach points in life, late 20s, early 30s, where they have mental health breaks and things like that. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I've noticed more mental health struggles like creeping into just my day to day, whether that's anxiety, depression, panic attacks. And the first time I had a panic attack, like I freaked out, like I didn't know what the hell was happening. And It's something I struggle with on the daily, dude. Like, there are some days where I just don't want to get out of freaking bed.
Yeah.
And throughout all of this, I've done therapy, I've done medications, really, I'm still trying to find my way through it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have any secret sauce. I don't have any kind of like special formula. I don't have anything like that. I'm going to impart any kind of greater, grand freaking wisdom to anybody on this. But the whole thing about this, and I've been very transparent on like my social medias and stuff on whether it's weight loss, mental health, all this kind of stuff. Like, I've always treated it like I'm a freaking open book. I try to be transparent. I try to be transparent in all forms of my life. And some of that's just being honest and open. And that's not always easy, man. So it's not done for any kind of shock and awe. It's not done for the social media and all that kind of bullshit. Like, I just do it because I feel like it's important to be open and honest in all walks of life. And if that bleeds over to social media, then so be it, you know? So, I've seen the comments and things you put out in space, and it's like, oh, you're just doing this for clicks and whatever. Like, no, like, I'm not, nobody's doing that. Nobody that really like exposes themselves to any type of social media platform is doing it for those reasons. At least I can tell you personally, I'm not doing that.
Right.
It's just more just to be open and honest. And if anybody takes anything away from any of that, and it leads somebody to therapy or leads somebody to talk to a friend whenever shit's going down, that's it. That's all of it.
Well, I love that. I mean, the final point you made about like when people are open and sharing, I think sometimes it can be for sure. I know that this is advantageous. People synthesize. Let me go post something. For me personally, just to share from my end, I will admit that there's an element of doing this month on this channel to help me selfishly get ready to launch my more formal content in relation to AI. But it's not about that, as you alluded to. And even for you said, yeah, I'm still working through this, and I'm not going to drop any like life altering advice or so forth. I would disagree. Just getting on here and sharing your story of somebody in your position in the industry is in and of itself a super, super useful and powerful thing for anyone else that is struggling, that can come on and see us talk about it, see the other episodes, and it generates inclusiveness and openness so that people feel less alone. If I can, real quick, just to shout out, there's a less alone group chat in the industry for people that struggle with mental health issues. If you are someone that's in the industry and wants a safe space to go talk with 50, 60 other people, let me know. Shoot me a DM and I'll add you to it. Derek, you've built a pretty strong reputation, though, in the fantasy sports industry, and it can be super, super demanding, especially once you ascend, if I can use that word, to a position like the one you hold now. How have you managed your mental health while balancing like the pressures of content creation, deadlines, maintaining a high level of accuracy and analysis? Like all of that is very, very high pressure. And how has it affected you?
Very poorly at times.
Sure.
I'm just being honest, man. Like, I have not been the best about like work-life balance. And and this kind of starts even before I was even full-time and calling this my job. I was not great about it, whether that's balancing. And I know a lot of other people out there, whether they're doing this on the side for side cash, side hustle, fun, hobby, whatever, as well as balancing kids, life, marriage, friends, all that kind of stuff, work, how you actually pay your bills if this is not your profession and stuff. It's like
Right.
all of those things add up to a lot of time. And time is the one thing that we can't get back. It's the one thing that no matter what, you only have a finite amount of, whether you want to talk about the day, the week, your life, all of those things. And so I've been very poor at managing all of that. Now, am I better than I used to be? Sure. Am I still good at it? Hell no. I'm terrible at it. It's something I struggle on even the daily basis, where it's like I've always wanted to put out a standard and hold myself to a standard of how I'm going to create whatever, whether it's a video, whether it's a podcast, whether it's writing a damn article, and the standard that I try to hold myself to and try to keep continuing to raise that standard for myself, it demands time. And I'm much better about a work-life balance than I used to be. And some of those things where it's like, especially in the last year, just
Sure.
Opening up all this, it's like FantasyPros, we have a team trip every single year. We go on a team trip as a team building thing every year. It's amazing. I mean, God bless the owners of this company. They're freaking awesome. The culture here is amazing. We go on that, and I remember packing for that team trip in February, and I was getting clothes ready and all that kind of stuff, and I just like happened to walk past, and it was like, you know, middle of the night, and I step on the scale because I don't know why. I just felt like it, and I was like, dear Lord, like this is the highest number. I'm the most unhealthiest I've ever been in my life. I need to do something about that. And whether you want to talk about, okay, well, some of that's life and where you're at and stuff, because also I just, you know, I'm 40 now and stuff. So I was like, had that kind of like, not midlife crisis, but that whole like, holy shit, like how did this all happen? Like where I
Yes.
just blinked my eyes and all of a sudden, like I'm freaking 40. I'm not in my 20s anymore. Like,
Yeah.
and you have this realization, and I was like, I got to change some stuff, man. Like I've got to get back to being better about some of this stuff. And whether that's making positive life choices, because for me, I am in a better frame of mind. I am in a better space when I am physically healthier. And you know, I mean, obviously I got common sense, one kind of goes with the other, you know, but like I find myself, I'm in a much better mental headspace when I am healthier, when I feel, because it affects everything. Like I have more energy. I feel better about like my self-esteem, like how your clothes fit, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, it's not vanity. It's like literally like just by getting yourself into a healthier state, it's a good thing. So like, I was like, okay, like I got back from that team trip and I was like, I got to change some shit. So like ever since then, like I've basically cut out drinking. I've been going to the gym like 3 to 4, trying for 4 now, 5 times a week, is what I'm trying now. But really like trying
Congrats,
to hit
man.
4 times a week, trying to lose weight, trying to eat better, trying as much as I can to go gluten free and stuff. So it's a lot of just like slow, and not all that shit happened. Like I didn't wake up the next morning and say, hey, all right, I'm going to do
Sure.
this.
Sure.
It's like tackling one little thing at a time and trying to add something else onto the plate, whether it's like next week or within the next 2 weeks, or because you can't just change life, what your routine, you can't change your habits overnight. That's not how any of
Right.
that works. And if you try to do that, you're going to build all this stuff and these expectations up within yourself where, I mean, if you're like me, like not everybody is, like if I don't like if I try to set up all these goals in front of myself and I don't reach all of them, but I've set up this like stack of things that I need to accomplish and change. If I don't do all of them, then I'm kind of like in my head, I'm like, well, shit, I just failed, you know? Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't do all those things, but it's like if you build that list like 1 at a time or 2 at a time and stuff and give yourself grace and say, I don't have to accomplish this, be perfect on it this week, but this is something I want to get better at, and slowly add things to the list, then that's how I'm trying to be successful at it. I can't say that's the perfect thing, but that's exactly how I'm tackling it.
No, like it's actually very apt. So last night I did an episode with Evan Bone from the Sports of Philly, and we closed it out. We were talking about addiction recovery, and in the world of addiction, there's like a catchphrase that is kind of at the baseline for everything they do, and recovery is 1 day at a time. And I have parlayed that into my own life to prevent like overzealous goals and setting myself up for failure. And you nailed it. You can't, if you have habits and life habits, first of all, people don't change until pain gets bad enough. I really do believe that. But
Good point.
when you get to that point, the instinct is to like, I have to change everything, like you just alluded to. I have to go make these rapid, grand changes in my life. I got to start exercising. You talking about that, exercising 5 days a week. I'm going to start now. It's like the highest failure activity in human existence is making a commitment to do something that you haven't done before and do it every day.
Well, because
If you
people
just,
want change. They want to see
yeah,
that immediate reflection. Like I went to the gym. I went to the gym 2 or 3 times this week. Like now I look in the mirror and nothing's different, or I step on the scale, or I don't feel any better yet. And it's like none of this shit happens overnight, you know? Like it
right.
doesn't. So it's like a lot of ways where like things are packaged and stuff, like especially in daily life right now, it's like you want this instant payoff, this instant gratification, this instant like that pot at the end of the rainbow. It's like I want that now, and it's like that's not how any of this has ever worked. It's not how it's going to work now. It's not how, like, that's just not how it is. So like, you have to also sign yourself up to like I talk about giving yourself grace, like give yourself grace in the sense that like none of this shit will happen overnight. You're not
Yes.
going to change your habits. You're not going to form healthier habits. You're not going to lose weight. You're not going to stop doing whatever you're addicted to. You're not going to like get positive change in the next 24 hours. Like not that like you can have small baby steps in that direction, but these grand sweeping things, you're going to wake up tomorrow and you're going to be healthy. You're going to be 30 pounds lighter. You're going to be so fit. You're going to be like in a great mental clarity, and everything's just going to open up and you're going to see the world for what it is. Like that's none of that shit happens that way, dude.
Yeah.
None of it. So like we have to understand that like it's a slow process, which is hard.
Well, and I think too, to hammer that for people that don't go through, whether it's a habit that you're changing or not, if we talked about mental health recovery and people that go into therapy to really change something integral about like what's going on deep inside, that is a long journey. And it is, in my opinion, it's like the hardest thing for a person to do is to go fundamentally change their internal makeup and do it for a good reason. And
it's tough, dude. It's
yeah,
really tough, especially not to cut you off, Ronnie, but
no,
like,
you're good. You're good.
it's tough. And just when you said that specifically, it just immediately made me think of, especially when you're carrying your own set of baggage or your own skeletons in the closet, and whether that's mental abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, all these types of things, which I have some of those skeletons. I'm not going to get into specifics, but like
No worries.
some of those skeletons are in my closet that I deal with and I've gone to therapy for. And it's like, you're also carrying all that baggage into your own struggles with you. So it's like
Right.
all the shit you went through 15, 20 years ago, maybe you didn't deal with. Maybe you're going to have to deal with it now, and you've kind of pushed it aside and buried it. And you're like, look, no, I'm not. No, like that will not affect the person that I am today, but fuck, it still does, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's harboring things. There's a term, I brought it up on a few episodes. Are you familiar with rumination?
I am not.
So rumination is without going into it fully, basically like when you're dwelling on negative stuff like that. If we wanted to talk about trauma, for example, you will ruminate on it. And the science shows that physiologically, let's say you're in a car accident. When you think about that car accident and really dwell on it, you physiologically live the same experience again and again and again every time. And so like when you have trauma that you're internalizing, a lot of people outside of the world of mental health sometimes have a misconception that like, okay, well, they're going to therapy, so that's when they're dealing with their mental health stuff that hour a week. Nope. Dealing with it 24/7 every day.
Or especially that day, like something I noticed in therapy, and you know, the days where I would have therapy, like the rest of the day, I would feel like just absolutely wiped out. Like, and like my wife, I mean, she's amazing, like would be extremely sensitive and thoughtful to that. Like there were days where I go to therapy, and depending on what the hell I talked about, like you feel like you're just kind of going through shit the rest of the day, you know?
Yeah.
Like, cause then you're just like, you're digging up all these old graves, and you're just like, God, man, I haven't thought about that in forever. And you kind of go all down all these rabbit holes in your head.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it does. It's part of the internal like search of therapy. Is it opens you up to more, and so then you have more to talk about the next week. One of the things my therapist recommended I do, which I have literally never done, I want to desperately, is to help that. Just a side bit of advice is to, like, for you, you said you're exercising every week now. If you could figure out how to exercise immediately after therapy, apparently it is like a steroid for processing everything and moving on. And so like diving into just a little bit more, I know you mentioned you have your own struggles that you go through. It. I'm going to theorize, but it sounds like they deal under the umbrella of like depression and anxiety. Am I on base there?
Yeah.
So depression and anxiety are kind of like, I don't know, they're kind of like the casual words of mental health at this point. Like everyone's got a little depression and a little anxiety, right? If you work in a full-time job, you're going to deal with that. But that doesn't, it almost invalidates how serious those two things can be for people that deal with them on a chronic level. For me, I have chronic depression and anxiety, and it's life altering because of I'm gonna choke up if I talk about it, but I went through a lot of
It's
shit
okay.
when I was a kid, and
Same.
I think that when there are labels applied to certain mental health disorders, it sets people up to then view them in different levels of severity, and I think that's a
Mhm.
mistake. Everyone, if
Yeah.
you're going through something and trying to self-improve, as we alluded to, and you have a struggle that's between the ears, it is outside of like terminal cancer, it's the most important thing for you to have to deal through and work with. It's your brain, and without rambling any further, it's really, really tough and difficult to dive into. But once you work on it, as you get further and further along and start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, like everything else in your life improves as a result of working on your mental health. Um, for you, I've got so many questions here, and I don't want to read through all of them, so I'm just going to wing it.
It's all good, man. We're off the show sheet by now. It's all
Yeah.
good. We're just vibing now, okay?
Well, how has your experience been just at large looking at the industry? I have my own take on the last 5 years, and I think the industry has done a really good job of opening up the mental health. Shout out to Anthony Servino and Michael Hoff at FF Face Off for their podathon and so forth.
Mhm.
But for you,
Love
it
those
sounds
guys.
like Fantasy Pros has been a really, really like welcoming place. Can you talk a little bit about the reception and the like community support that you've run into or lacked throughout your career in fantasy sports? When
So go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, Ronnie.
I was literally just going to be redundant and say in regards to mental health. Go ahead.
Okay, well, sorry. Um, I can't speak for everybody's path and everybody's experiences for this. I will say that I have encountered situations where I have worked 70, 80 hours a week, where I have just been down in the weeds working to a point that is just not healthy. And
Mm,
and is that something that I do nowadays? No. As much as my bosses can keep me from doing it, I will throw myself into those own depths, like self-appointed at times. But one of the big things that, and I'm gonna shine some light on one of my bosses right now, and he's behind the scenes. He's not out on social media streets and things like that. But one of my bosses named Blaine is just an absolute love that man. And when I interviewed for Fantasy Pros, I was at a spot where I was just like, look, like I've got to just tell me this, Ronnie. Like, tell me if you, after I kind of go through all this, if you would say this in a job interview for a new place, if you're actually trying to get the job. In the job interview, I was like, I've got to have a better work-life balance. Like, I've got to get to a point where I am better. I'm better mentally. I've got to achieve that. Because if not, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to end up in a psychiatric facility or divorced, or in a psychiatric facility and divorced.
yeah,
Both of those things could possibly happen. Like, I'm not mentally well right now, and I'm trying and I'm getting better and things like that. But I said I've worked myself, and this is not like shade on to other, previous platforms, employers, or anything like that. No, I'm not going that direction. Like, I'm going to own
sure.
some of this too. Is like, because you can either do the job and you can allow it, or you can also push back and say, look, like, setting boundaries and things like that too. So when I interviewed for the job at Fantasy Pros, the opening introduction interview, the first one that I had with them, I literally was like, I need a better work-life balance. I can't continue to function like this. And when I'm saying this has no reflection about like how hard I'm willing to work.
Right.
Like, because the great thing about Fantasy Pros, when I got to Fantasy Pros, is I have worked with, in some iteration or form, every single person that I work with on a daily basis right now. I did stuff with Joey P before I got here. Amy and Andrew Erickson came up in the industry together. I worked at a lot of the same places before I even got to Fantasy Pros. I did shows with Pat before I got here, done shows with Welsh. I mean, it just on and on and on. So like, I knew that I was stepping into not only a situation where I knew a lot of people I was going to be working with on the day to day, but in this job interview, like, I'm throwing all these things out and I'm saying like, look, like, I'm willing to work hard, but I've got to do better things for me, or I'm not going to be able to do this job to its fullest, and I've got to make better choices for myself moving forward. And it's like, how many places do you know or do you think that would be warmly received? Like maybe, okay, on the
Yeah.
surface, but like after a job interview, how many institutions and places would just automatically maybe cross you off a list and say, no, we're not going with that for whatever reason? And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just being honest about that. Like how many places would possibly cross you off a list because you're saying, no, I've got to set limits. I got to set limits on how much I work and blah, blah, blah. The immediate response on that first interview by Blaine was, no, you might not like it, but if you come to work here, I will hold you to task and I will make you make positive choices for yourself at times. And I was like, holy shit. Like I wasn't expecting that type. Like I'm going to fucking tear up right now, but like I wasn't expecting that type of response, man. Like I was like, dude, cause I was at a spot where I was like, if I keep going the way that I'm going, I'm going to end up just broken and out of the industry in the next like 2 to 5 years. You know what I mean? So like, I can never, even then and now, I still can't say thank you enough. And he's done it. Like, it wasn't just lip service. Like there have been times where like I've wanted to, especially like, the last 2 years, especially last season, the first week of the season, I was like, look, I was fired up. I was like, I'm going to get the primer out. Like, this is how we're going to kick it off. It's going to be a kick-ass season. I love this. Like, I'm going to like, I had all these like changes that I was doing for the primer and stuff. I was like, I want to like, this is going to be another year doing this and it's going to be great. Freaking came down with COVID, like the week of the, like first week of the season. And I'm hitting on my bot. Like, I feel like a train wreck. And I was like, I'm still going to get the primer out. And Blaine's like, no, you're not. You're going to go take your ass to the bed and you're going to go lay down and you're going to rest. We're going to divide everything up amongst the team and you are going to go rest. I don't want to hear from you for the next 2 to 3 days outside of checking in with me about how you're doing. And I was like, I was just like floored, man. I was just like, holy shit. Like, well, I just, yeah. But anyway, I'm just
I love that. First of all, shout out to Blaine. Had a little minor correspondence with him through Pat. He seems like an absolute, just everything I've heard about the guy is
amazing
human angel, basically.
Amazing human.
So to answer your question, there's most places, I think the further we go back in time, year by year, the level of rejection you get from bringing that up in an interview gets higher and higher. I think we're at a point in society where it's probably 50-50 and I'm just out of pocket right now. I have no idea if that's accurate. But most people are not willing to bring that up in the interview. I vibe with you because that is literally the first thing that I would bring up when people.
Well, the reason I did, because I was like, if this is not a fit, because I'm bringing this up and I'm just being transparent to a possible future employer. I was like, I'm like, if that's not going to be a fit and you don't vibe with what I'm telling you right now, because this is the real of it, then this is not going to be a fit just in general. Like, I don't need to work here. If you're not down with that, I don't need to work here, you know? So.
Well, and I think that is, I mean, it's proactive therapy, really, when you are able to go out and tell people, hey, this is what I deal with. And for us to vibe and for us to really work together, you have to be able to accept that. And if not, no worries, no hard feelings. But we won't be able to like find a cohesive work balance with things. And that is very difficult to do. But having a boss that sympathizes and understands, and then also the really rare thing is what you said when his response, like in having someone above you that is willing to not only sympathize and understand what you have going on, but act as that barometer when you need it and say, hey, no, you're dealing with stuff right now. Get away from us. Go deal with you. And we're okay with that is actually super rare. And I think that's incredible. It's fantastic. I have had a handful of jobs in my life. One of them actually was in sales that was like that, which is weird. Mm-hmm. But most of my jobs are not. Even right now, I work at a school and I can take off time when I need to, but it's not really met with a lot of love. And I think that is an underrated aspect of running a business. And this whole podcast is not only just for content creators, but for people that are working in the industry. So take note, like that is a super powerful way to manage your team, just to be in touch with their limitations and not fault them for them. For you, let me go back, super unprofessional, but this is a mental health podcast, so whatever. Let's talk about
You're
one
fine,
thing.
dude. I feel like I'm going off all kinds of tangents, and I'm like, as
We're
I'm like telling, like I'm just like word vomiting to you. I'm like,
no,
what was the original question he asked me? Did I answer all the parts or pieces? Like, crap. Okay, maybe I missed something. Ah.
no, you're good. Let's move away from Fantasy Pros for a second, though, and just like industry at large. And one of the catalysts of negative feelings and mental health issues for a lot of people is the toxicity that is online and social media. It's like a double-edged sword for an analyst. Like you get on, you get a lot of clout, you do good things, people can support you, but also if you get anything wrong as you get bigger, you will have people that tell you about it. And sometimes they can
Yep.
be overzealously vicious. And
Sometimes. Yeah.
oftentimes when
Sometimes.
they're like that, it's not unintentional. It's like the intention is to try to make you upset. So
Yep.
for you, how has your experience been handling that? And are there any methods or habits that you've formed over time to kind of keep that at bay?
Um, it's definitely something that has impacted me since coming to Fantasy Pros, and like you're talking about with platform and with more people laying eyes on my work and listening to my voice and stuff. And I'm gonna throw like I've never tried to be anything more than me. I've never tried, and I understand that's not gonna be everybody's favorite cup of tea. I think people very much confuse passion with cockiness. And I'm very
Yeah.
passionate about everything that I do. And I speak with a lot of energy because that's just who I am. And I'm not going to stop doing that. And that is what it is. But like a lot of pushback and a lot of hate and a lot of like the way that I've tried to deal with a lot of that because, and it's something I've struggled with before and I still struggle with. Like just to peel back the curtain, like I have and still have like hardcore imposter syndrome. Like
Hmm.
it has always been
That thing is a
something,
bitch, man.
dude. It's always something that's like really just gotten me. And that like my background before I started doing all of this was in nursing. Like I've got a degree in nursing. Do I have a
Hmm.
degree in fantasy football? Do I have a degree that like I could show anybody outside of my track record or my analysis or whatever that could substantiate the fact that I do this for a job now and stuff like that? No. You know, I feel like my work does that well enough, but at the same time, there is nothing that is ironclad that can prop up and show anybody regardless of awards or whatever the hell people want to throw out there. There's nothing out there that's going to definitively throw out there that you are amazing at your job in this game about a game. And with all of that, I've always dealt with imposter syndrome, and I use it now as more of a means to motivate me in that I never want to stop growing. I never want to stop trying to be better than I was before, whether that's yesterday, last year, and adding more things to the tool belt. And with looking at just the struggles of dealing with social media, part of that is evolving on how I deal with social media. Like I used to love social media in that you could have productive conversations on social media, and you can still to an extent. But a lot of those things are not productive conversations. A lot of people come at you, and I'm not going to say it's uneducated opinions, but like some of the opinions are just like, oh, you're wrong, you're an idiot, or you're a clown, or you're just posting this shit because of whatever. And it's like the way that I've tried to like set boundaries for myself to deal with all of that with social media is I try to put out information that I think is either actionable or helpful. And the way that I've tried to like, as the platform's gotten bigger and I try to not, you don't shield yourself from all the crazy bullshit that can get thrown at you. It's more of mitigating some of that
Hmm.
so you don't take it to heart and it affects how you're doing, what you're doing, and the way you're doing it. And for me, it's come down to a few different things. Like last year, or maybe it was the year before, I had to close my DMs, and I never thought I would ever close my DMs. I had to
Hmm.
close my DMs because I literally got messages of people saying like I should go kill myself. I should all other types of various types of hateful shit. And I was like, all right, no, done. Like you're not gonna message me all this stuff. Like,
Yeah.
no. It was not like I'm getting questions. It's not because of anything else. It was because of that. And I closed my DMs and I was like, I never thought I would ever do that because I wanted to be accessible to anybody and everybody. but I was like, okay, apparently I need to set boundaries here. The other way that I've done that with social media, and I apologize to anybody out there, like if there's ever a tweet and I don't reply to your question, or I don't reply to an interaction, and I say this to multiple people in the space, it's like, after a certain point, when I tweet out stuff, I will mute conversations. And I do that because all of the negative, baseless, whatever types of comments, or people just saying shit that's incendiary, like to troll you and stuff, I don't care about you saying that. Like, does it impact me? Can it impact me? Sure. Do I want to hear that? Do I want to see that on my timeline? Do I want to deal with that bullshit? No. Because 9 times out of 10, it's people saying shit that if you were standing physically in front of them, they would never say to you in a million years.
Yes.
And it's like, just because you have a keyboard and a social media platform, I have the ability to say whatever I want to say, and you can as well. But it doesn't mean that because people want to throw it back as soon as you mute or block somebody because they said something fucking terrible to you.
Yeah.
The first thing they want to do is call you soft. And it's like, I'm not soft. If anything, the fact that you get upset by the fact that I blocked you or muted you because you said something hateful to me is if we want to talk about being soft, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm not being soft by setting boundaries on what I'm willing to sit here and deal with, because if we were standing in the same physical space, I wouldn't deal with this bullshit that you're slinging at me if we were standing right next to each other.
Right.
Like, not physically, but I would not talk to you. I would walk away. I would diffuse the situation, and I would not converse with you. So the fact that I don't want to do that or deal with that on a social media platform when I wouldn't deal with it in my everyday life in a physical environment, no. Like, we should hold ourselves to the same standards we would in real life to how we're dealing with social media.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to put up with your bullshit in real life. I don't have to put up with your bullshit on social media. So I will apologize to anybody, but that is how I try to set boundaries, and how, like, I have a very low threshold of mute and blocking people. And it has nothing to do with me having a problem with people disagreeing with things that I say. That has nothing to do with it at all. It's when you step out and you're going to say something nasty to me that you have no base or whatever, or it's not even factually correct a lot of different times. It's like, no, I don't have to deal with that. So guess what? I'm not going to deal with it. You can go scream in a corner. That's fine. Have fun.
Yeah. Well, and just to even simplify that further, like you talked earlier about, hey, yeah, we need to set boundaries for ourselves. For people like you and me and anyone else that's dealing with something internally, you got to keep an eye on it. If it helps make you feel better. When people do the group tag posts, like, hey, shout out to all these people, and they'll tag like you and 20 other people in one tweet.
Yeah.
I love you and anyone else that does those. I appreciate you when you include me in them. The first thing I do is mute them. Not because I don't want to.
I mute it immediately.
Because it gives me so much anxiety, because I know I'm going to get 40 notifications from that thread.
I mute it immediately, and a lot of times I'll leave the conversation, and I'm not trying to be a jerk. It has nothing to do with that. It's just like,
it's too much for me.
People that I talk to on a daily basis, or people that I talk to in DMs, and they'll say, like, positive, or they'll, whatever, that's fine. Like, I'm willing to have all those conversations, but I don't need, because a lot of times I feel like when somebody will tag like 40 people in a post and stuff too, it's just like, I don't need somebody blowing smoke on my ass. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to do that. Like, it's cool.
Well, and for me, it's more about like it's a little bit of that, but I'm smaller time in the industry. So there's an element when you're working your way up, you kind of like love that stuff a little bit more. But I also my anxiety goes through the roof when I have too many, like when I feel like I am now a slave to whatever social media app is on, then I can't do it. And the number one way that happens is when I get like 50 notifications. And selfishly, if they're all notifications about me, it's easier to digest. And I think that's true for anybody. But when it's like, I feel obligated to go then and like, I want to follow this thread and make sure I'm following up with everyone and let them know I love them too. And like, I just can't. So I just mute it.
Yeah, and to a certain extent that happens to me too, because then I feel like I feel like I'm being a jerk if I don't respond to somebody's comment or something like that. It's like, because the other thing about it is with all of this, I'm still wowed that anybody gives a shit about what I say about any of this stuff. you know, it's still crazy to me that this is a job that I'm doing, that anybody cares, that I'm even doing this show with you, you know? So like, and that's just being real. Like, so like when anybody says stuff like out on social media, like I almost get that feeling, and this is a feeling I absolutely dread and hate. When you're at a birthday party or you're at Christmas and you have to open a present in front of everybody, and you're
Mm,
saying, and you open the present and everybody, you know, everybody's looking at your face and your reaction. That's exactly how I feel when I get tagged in certain things.
yes, I
It's
love that
like,
analogy. That's
I feel
fantastic.
like you're feeling like all the eyes on you, and you're like, am I saying the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Do I look like I'm smiling? Like, you know, am I looking appreciative enough or too appreciative? I don't want to sound like I'm fake, but if I do really appreciate this, and you kind of like get in your damn head about it, you're like, oh, shit, I don't know what to do. And
Yeah,
that's what
yeah,
happens.
exactly. Well, and it's mental health is complicated. If you struggle with mental health issues on any level, they can complicate your day, they can complicate your life. But I want to just throw out something for people that are watching that don't struggle with anything on a day-to-day basis and think, oh, mental health's not really something I deal with. It's not correct. Mental health is it's a scale. So if you have had a bad thing happen to you in your life recently, maybe you're much better at dealing with it than other people. But I would be willing to bet for 5 or 10 minutes minimum, it affected your mentals. And last year, when I was very vocal about mental health being important, but it was really a coping mechanism for me because I was in a really, really, really dark place this time last year. And one of the things that resonated with a few people, I did a Twitter space and said, hey, if you make content creation or content for fantasy sports and you put out rankings and you get them wrong, and then people call you out on it, that in and of itself will give you mental health issues, whether it's for like 10 minutes or 2 days if you ruminate it for too long. And identifying that mental health is not only the top of the severity list, but it's also the bottom. I hope it gives people the ability to like relate more and understand more, because oftentimes these issues like depression and anxiety, they are just really, really extreme and voluminous versions of what everyone else is dealing with on a more minimal level. I don't have a question for that. I was just rambling.
That's okay. It's all good. It's good info,
um,
man.
with mental health in the industry, do you mentioned exercising, you mentioned that you have a team and like a management group now that is aware and supportive and can help you take breaks and manage this stuff. But outside of exercise and taking breaks, is there anything you do in your life or hobbies that you find boost your mental health?
I,
It's okay if not.
no, like two or three different things that help me as far as yeah, like I said, like exercising and stuff like that is really big for me. It just it it aids not only, I think, like I said before, the two are tied together. Physical health and mental health, I think, are joined at the hip. Um to a certain extent, I think that equation is probably different for everybody. How much so? But I think it's still one and one. Like they are hand holding.
Mm.
So for me, going to the gym, being a better physical health space definitely helps me mentally. But the one thing that's always resonated with me, and whether I've gone through tough times in my life, whether it's been good, whether it's been bad, whether it's somewhere in between, whether it's been, you know, the lowest of the low, I feel like music has always been something that is massive for me.
Yeah.
I have lyrics tattooed on me for certain songs that resonate with me. I have certain songs that, and we all have some of this. It's like you have some imprinted memory on just everything in life, like whether a certain smell will make you think of a certain instance in life. For me, and everybody's like this with music too, so to an extent. But for me, it plays up. It's like there are certain songs that I tie to certain points in my life that will remind me of certain things.
Give me
And
one. Give me an example.
oh God, anything by Yellow Card makes me think of happy
Hey.
times with my wife when we were younger in college, and will put me in a better frame of mind. Like when we used to go to Warp Tour religiously for 6 to 10 years. We went every single year, every single summer. So anything by them is very uplifting to me.
Are they the ones who
They're
do like "Weekend all day, staying up all night"? That one?
Believe is one of their songs. Ocean Avenue.
Yeah, yeah.
They're the guys with the electric violin in the
Yes, yes.
songs. Yeah. And so, but music has always been very, very helpful to me, cathartic. Like it's something like people because and this is just part of how I'm wired. I never realized this is the thing until my wife pointed it out probably about a year or two ago. I've never gotten like some people get clarity or they get satisfaction by reading or poetry and things of that nature. And it's like when I read, I don't visualize anything. Like I don't like, everybody talks about like when I read, I
Interesting.
get a picture in my head and I can visualize the story. I was like, I don't see shit. Like
Yeah.
I don't nothing. I see words on a page and I'm bored as hell. Like I'm a total fake. Like all these books outside of that stack right there of publications I've helped write, all of this other shit's my wife. I'm not a reader, but like this all ties back into music has always been there for me as my poetry, the literary stuff, like something I can go to when I'm dealing with shit, whether that's listening to a certain song and the lyrics impact me, or it's how I'm feeling that day, or what I'm going through, or it makes me feel more hopeful, or I listen to a lot of like heavy music and metalcore and stuff like that. Or if it's something that's super heavy and like I'm driving and I'm screaming to like my freaking toes, like I'm about to like vomit blood because I'm screaming to the top of my damn lungs in my car as I'm dealing with some shit throughout the day. Like that helps me. Like it always has, and it's music has always been one of those things. It's massive for me. Like I have, multiple representations of that, like even just ink on my body. Like I have a mic on my chest. Like it's something very near and dear to me. Like, it's kind of one of those things like if you were to lose any one of your senses, like how would you cope? How would you continue to move through life? How would that impact you and stuff? If I were to lose my hearing, and lose music as a part of my life, it would be incredibly detrimental.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Shout out to anyone that does suffer from hearing impairment or is deaf. Like you guys, I mentioned earlier, going through mental health struggles is one of the hardest things you do. If you have something like that with you're dealing with, it is hard for me to even relate with. And I think that you guys are all heroes for navigating that. I lit up Toronto Babe. It's like Ronnie knows my backstory. Do you know my history with music?
No, don't.
I came from the music industry. I worked in the music industry for 6 years.
Oh, good shit.
I was the 1975 I was their first like American PR agent way back like 12 years ago.
That's
Helped
awesome.
manage a massive site and did a lot with it. And actually music for me ended up being a catalyst for mental health issues. I had a really, really, really proud of my career and everything I did for a half decade and went really well. But for me, it made my ego like I was 19 years old when I got hired by this company and like left college to go do it, and it worked out. And my ego was like just through the roof. And then I moved to Atlanta, and I had back surgeries. It fucked up my music career. I had to step away from everything. Had infections with it. Spent 2 years going in and out of the hospital.
Oh man.
Recovered from that. And when I moved to Atlanta, the moving company stole my laptop, my backup hard drives, and my record collection. And I lost everything.
Jeez, dude.
And it was like 300,000 songs that I had personally rated. I had recorded over 400 songs, and I lost all but 8 of them. And that messed me up for like 5 years. I basically felt like I had everything.
You're losing a part of yourself. Like you threw yourself into all of that. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Well, to your point, though, I've always viewed music as one of the few universal languages. It's one of the things you can go anywhere. Like like you said, you can bring up songs and they imprint on us, but you can go anywhere in the world, play music, and people will understand and vibe with you if it's the type they like, or you can find a song you both like. And it is a great therapy tool. So anyway, enough about me. Going back to using music as therapy. Like when I see people on the road in their car, like jamming out and just like losing it. When I was younger, I judged them. And I was like, oh, that guy looks like an idiot. Now as an adult, I do the same thing. And when I look at that, I like get excited for them because I know they are processing. And
I give zero fucks. Like I put both the windows down. I'm the dude that's like pulled up at the freaking, like I'm something out of probably like a commercial or some shit. Like I'm pulled up at the stoplight. I'm sitting here like jamming out to some heavy shit, like screaming my damn head off, like with the windows down and stuff, just giving zero fucks about it, like while I'm at the light. Like probably I'm sure that people are probably like,
Yeah.
and I don't care. I don't care.
I'll blast the weirdest music sometimes too, just because I know it'll get a reaction from other people, and I want to like let myself go for a little bit. Music
Yeah.
is fantastic. Exercise is really good. I've had other people like Nick Whalen was the first episode. He's a counselor. I'm sure you know
Oh,
Nick.
I love Waylon.
Yeah,
Hey, Waylon and I
he's such a
text
good guy,
constantly. I
dude.
love that man.
Um,
He's awesome. Shout out to Nick.
shoot him a text when you get off and be like, "Hey, I just hit the Judgment Seesaw. You should go watch it."
And
But
he's one of the people that I've checked in with over the
yeah,
years about like how I'm doing. We text back and forth, like how we're both doing in life and stuff like that.
that's
So yeah,
amazing. Well,
he's
he's
awesome.
such a good guy, and he gave some foundational advice that I want to parlay back and share again with you and anyone else that's watching, because it ties
Mhm.
into what you said. And everyone that's come on this show has kind of supported the same 4 or 5 things that Nick identified, and they're true in mental health. It is like your circadian rhythm, like getting regular sleep is for many people that's number one. You got to get
I'm
your sleep.
so bad at that.
Me
Oh my
too,
God,
man. And
so bad.
when I don't get like if I get 5 hours or less of sleep, I am depressed as shit the next day. It is like clockwork. So getting your sleep,
Much less if you work like night shifts, not to cut you off, Ronnie, but like
you
people that
get
work night shifts and bouncing back, and because I've done that before, that can absolutely screw with you. Like the more you do it and long term, I would say like that can also cause some struggles, man. I've been there because then you get to a point where you flip flop back and forth where you can't even sleep or you're trying to sleep. It creates so much unrest, and people don't understand, the people that work night shifts, how hard that struggle is. Like, and it compounds itself the longer you do that over years. But anyway, go back circadian rhythm.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Like so, and sleep is super important. Exercise is another one of the cornerstones. Um, a proper diet and like being open and focusing on your own things. I might be butchering some of these, but the last one that he kept hammering was surrounding yourself with the right people and showing gratitude towards them, and vice versa. If you want to improve in life, there's the old saying, you are kind of like the 5 people you spend the most time with. I don't really believe that, but I think there's some truth to it. But when you are working through self improvement and you're trying to improve your life, which everyone should be, whether it's a mental health thing or just like improving, didn't I want to be better than I was yesterday in general?
Mm-hmm.
That should be everyone's goal. Finding the right people to surround yourself with to enable that and support you is fundamental. And it sounds like
Mm-hmm.
whether it's guys like Nick or Andrew or friends that you've made over the years as you've come up with this industry, but also you are now working at a place that offers that too. I think you've got those ingredients in place. You're exercising, which is another important ingredient. I know you talked about sleep. I would imagine as you continue to exercise more, it might be easier. You might find sleep a little more accessible. But as you deal with all of those things, Derek, I just wanted to say I'm really proud of you, man. Like you're checking off a lot of the boxes to keep things regulated the way you want to. And I think other people can look at your story and what you're doing and what we talked about in this episode and find some inspiration to do it themselves. So
Just try, man. We're all trying to walk a road every single day, man. It's just, it's just one foot in front of the other. And I know it sounds so damn cliche, but every day has got its own freaking struggles. Every day you wake up with a different mindset and you're like, okay, how am I going to maximize, I woke up and I have tons of energy and a great mood. How am I going to maximize that? How am I going to break out of, I woke up and I feel like crap. I feel like I don't want to do anything. Whether that's just being non-motivated, depressed, like dealing with other stuff, or you're just going through it, like you just try to tackle it all one at a time. However, you can do that positively.
yes. As you were talking, I want to close this out by linking a song that Leo Pasiga texted me months ago. And he was like, hey, this song means a lot to me. It helps me work through my mental.
I love Leo.
And Leo is
Man.
a saint. Talk about Blaine. Like Blaine and Leo are the same type of person. They really are just
Leo's somebody that's been in this space for a long time, and he's been
Mhm.
also somebody that's been extremely helpful and positive to others in this space, and real too. Like very, very very kick-ass human.
All right, let me type this in here. A Symptom of Being Human by Shinedown.
Oh, good song. Good song. That's actually I got a playlist of like over 100 songs that I listen to daily just on repeat of this playlist, and that's one of them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, for everyone else that's watching, I am listening to that song every once in a while now too. Leo introduced me to them, and it's cool, man. It does a really good job of helping like identify and make you feel less alone and know that there's other people out there that are struggling with the same thing. So for you, Derek, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I know you've got something to get to, and we are like 25 minutes past the attention span mark for the average viewer.
I told you I talk too damn much. I told you this is going to happen. You were like, well, if I'm doing my job as a host, this shouldn't happen. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I think you're really underestimating how much I've run my mouth, but okay.
Hey, well, and let's practice some therapy real quick. We did a great job. We had a reason to talk for this long, and this was a killer episode. So, Derek, before we go, like, thank you for hopping on. Thank you for sharing. I want to have you back again next year when I do this again. In between now and then, I'll see you at the expo, and in general, keep on doing really good work. Do you have? Oh, speak of the devil, Evan from last night, who's still watching. Anything else that you want to bring up or people you want to shout out before we close this out?
Oh man. I would say the only other person I want to bring up in all of this is my colleague in arms here, Joey P. If it wasn't for him, I almost hate to do this because he's never. No, I'm just giving him shit. But like I was gonna say, like he's never gonna let me live it down. But like he knows this as well. Is that he's one of the reasons that I'm even still doing this in this space, and it's a blessing to get to work with him on a daily basis. Awesome guy. So
shout out to Joey P. What's his Twitter? Do you know off the top of your head? If not, we can just
Joe Pisa 14, I think. It's not anything that makes any kind of sense to me. I'm like, was it Joey P? Is it anything like? No, it's not.
If you search Joe Pisa on Twitter, you'll find him. There's not too many Joe P's. All right. Well, in general, I'll be back again tomorrow. We've got shows throughout the rest of the month, and I appreciate you for coming on. Keep the dream alive. Keep focusing on yourself and working on the mentals, man.
Well, thanks, Ronnie, man. Like I said before, anytime want to talk anything, ball or anything else in between, dude, door's always open, and it's always a yes. It's just a matter of when can we make it happen.
Sure. Well, I appreciate that. And that goes from me to anyone else that's watching too. If you are struggling with mental health, again, shoot me a DM. I'll add you to the Less Alone group chat for people that are in the fantasy community. And until next time, this is Judgment Seesaw. Good vibes, as always.
What's going on between my ears? Everyone seems to be so clear, but I'm feeling foggy. I won't grin and bear it. Let's talk about it with Ronnie and Derek. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's Mental Health Awareness